And then we appear. I really need to lower that.
Hey guys.
Hopefully Stuart won't
Welcome back.
blow your audio out there. He's now back to normal levels. Freaking few.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Alright, we have a special guest today. We have David Bessig here to teach us all about the Bissigverse.
Custom
Sorry
graphics
about
and
the
all.
audio issues. Deal with that next time.
Yep.
All I know is it's playing fine on my end. That's all I could hear for obvious reasons, because I'm not playing it. So.
Yeah, well, it wasn't translating, so. I'm just apologizing for
Yeah.
these issues. So. Anyway, guys, welcome back. This should be a fun one. We're going to have David walk us through his awesome work that he's done here quite a bit. And you guys can take a look yourselves. There is a download link in the description below, so you can follow along on each slide and actually read the stuff at your own time, should you want to. So please check it out. You put a lot of time and effort into this. So.
And this is totally all you've got, right? There's nothing else. There's no more development. This you've managed to put all into one set of slides.
Yeah, I mean, this is half of what we were initially planning to do, so, you know, we had to cut it in half.
You took out the most technical stuff, and you'll see that how impressive that still is. Right, I'm going to start sharing, because that is a part of the process, David, so see you in a second.
Yeah. So while he's sharing, I'm going to tell you guys to hit that like button. If you have any questions, by all means, put them in the chat or super chat, because David, I'm sure, will be happy to address any questions you guys have. And I'm sure he'll be checking the comments after the fact. So if you're watching this, but when it's not live, you can still comment, and I'm sure he'll get back to you. Plus, we'll have him back on. We've done quite a few videos with him, and we'll have more in the works. So stay tuned. So, Dave.
Yes, sir.
How long have you been working on this? Let's get started on that.
Well, on the Bissigverse, or this small part of the Bissigverse.
I'd say the Bissigverse.
Probably on and off for about 3 years, maybe more at this point. This particular presentation you're looking at, probably 3 months-ish, maybe 4 months.
Cool. Yeah. Let's see. You've done how many originals with us so far? 2, 3?
Well, yeah, I think we have 3 well, they're all 2-parters, so it's like, you know, it's like 3 ships, but like 6 episodes, and then the map book we did. So it's, I don't know, it's a number of them.
Yeah. So if you guys haven't checked those out, go check them out. What's wrong with you? I should actually put all the links in the description after this live, all the other videos. But yeah. So, guys, also don't forget to join the channel if you're able to. We'd appreciate that. Make sure you're subscribed. Click the bell notification icon to all, and by all means, check out the links down below for like the Teespring and the TeePublic store. Get yourself some Trekyards merch, and yeah, lots of ways to help us out and show David that you care about his amazing work that he's put into this, because he's going to talk our ear off, and we're going to love every second of it.
And speaking of, Mr. Random asks, okay, I'm a noob. What is a Bissigverse? David, what is a Bissigverse, and why is it called a Bissigverse?
The Bissigverse is actually a term these two came up with. I did not start calling
So
it
vaguely
that.
insisted.
I had a totally different name for it, and at the first episode, they're like, "Nope, we're calling it the Bissigverse. You've been overruled." And the Bissigverse, there is no not silly way to say this, so I'll just say it, is basically my reboot of how I think Star Trek should look and work and feel, with a heavy sprinkle of military realism on it. As you know, many people here know, I was previously in the military. I was a history major. You know, I live, eat, and breathe everything to do with geopolitics and military science and hardware. And I'm a big Trekkie, and Star Trek has gone on for like, I don't know, 55 or almost 60 years by now, right? Something like that. And it's beautiful in all of its various facets, but it's very disjointed. It's herky-jerky, and it's not standardized. And the Bissigverse is like, let's start at first contact and just start over and make everything make sense. So, you know, small project, right? Small, tiny.
Just to clarify, First Contact with the Vulcans, not First Contact the movie.
Although you could argue timeline change.
Well,
That's another live. So we'll do that another time, Stuart.
But I do want to go to this next slide, because I think it's the most important one of the entire piece. I don't think we should wait any longer to really sell the entire thing. If this doesn't sell you guys, you just... Oh.
Yep. we might as well just get right to it.
The genius of the Bissigverse summarized in one slide.
Yes.
My God.
So for any of our vets out there in the audience, whether you're watching live or you're watching this later on replay, this page should look painfully familiar to you. Every tax stop book you've ever gotten in your entire life had this on its second page, and I see no reason why that should not continue well into the future. So here it is, and here it remains. This page is intentionally blank.
But the real first page, though. Well, I do a poll.
All right. Yeah, so just walk us through these and give us as much detail as you'd like. If you have any questions, we'll jump in, and if the audience has any, we'll let you know.
Sure. Yeah. So I figured I would just kind of start talking about what we have here. You guys can butt in with questions as they arise, topics you want to touch on. And then as our audience kicks in with questions, we'll just kind of take them as it comes. So we go to the beginning of this part of our story with the founding of the Federation. So, this should come as no surprise to anybody listening to this who knows anything about me. The very short answer is yes. I am in process of writing the entirety of the Federation Charter, and I have about 26 pages of it written so far. So that is where the screenshot of the preamble comes from there. That I will probably be a topic for another live all on its own at a point later where we can get into all of that wonderful goodness. Part of the Federation Charter was the establishment of the Federation Starfleet and secondarily the Federation Marine Corps. This is kind of...
Which is the same as Mako? Or... No, okay. Are the Mako still around as well, or is it, they're replacing that?
No.
Okay.
In our bottom paragraph here, it actually talks basically... the Mako, the Andorian Imperial Shock Brigades, the Vulcan Security Director, and the Teller Planetary Special Forces were merged into this element. So it didn't happen all at once, though. Everything in real-world military processes is all very procedural, and it doesn't nothing happens very quickly, right? The world of the military is one big bureaucracy, and the Federation is a massive bureaucracy, like the largest one known to man. Part of the logo, I don't know if you can go back or forward or whatever, but if you go back to the logo of the Federation Marine Corps screen, you'll see that there are 3 stars on the right side of the loop on the outside. And those 3 stars, because it's funny, I've shown this to people, and the first things out of their mouth was like, Dave, you got the star count wrong. There was 4 founding members of the Federation, not 3. And I'm like, no, that's not what it's for. That was actually for the first 3 brigades that were formed of the Marine Corps, because it's not like the entirety of the Mako and all these other people were all of a sudden snap your finger and they were merged into the Marine Corps. It was a very gradual process that happened over time. So they stood up 3 brigades, mixed these various components in, and started figuring it out. So everything about the construction of the Federation military apparatus is a very procedural process thing. And a good way to think about it is, imagine we took the United States, Canada, England, and France, right? And we said, hey, we're creating a new branch of a military that works for this new combined government between our 4 countries. Just could you imagine how difficult and how long that would take to get something functioning like that? So obviously it would be a process to go through.
That's Canada. We got the U.S. influence. We got the British. We got the French. That's Canada. Just grabbing us.
That's true. Technically, it's already been done, I guess. And then the Stellar Marine Corps I thought was an interesting concept because it is actually canon. It is in Star Trek, The Undiscovered Country, I want to say, or... Yeah, that's the one where Kirk is sent to the prison and whatever, and the guy who ends up playing Odo
Colonel West,
later, Colonel West, not Odo, is up there, and on his briefing slide is the Federation Marine Corps logo, and he's talking about his rescue plan. So it is canon, folks. It's in there. But the problem is that was it. I'm pretty sure that is about as far as its canon representation goes.
That's Nicholas Meyer saying, "Oh, we can have Marines," and everyone else saying, "No, we can't."
Yeah.
But I make a film, so I could be canon. So okay, cool.
Yeah, there is some FASA material that covers
there's
it.
everything FASA material. Everything.
Yeah,
everything
it was really old, and I don't even think there's any digital
I'm sure Stuart's got them.
Copies of it around now, to be honest with you.
Right.
But what
Marco asks
Ooh.
question, and I apologize if you already answered it. Why did you have the year of the formation of the Federation as 2162 when in all canon it is stated as 2161?
So,
boom.
that's a fair question. This was a deliberate decision that I made because again, as a student of real world history and real world geopolitics, nothing happens quickly. Like just you have to understand how painfully slow things are just on Earth with the various bickering nations of Earth. Add all these other planets into the mix and different species and totally different ways of thinking and doing politics and whatever. I just think it's insane to think that we could go from coalition of planets, Battle of Charon, Romulan War ends to great. We have a signed treaty for the Federation. We exist now in less than 12 months. Like I give it roughly 24 months, and trying to explain that realistically, that is like moving at light speed.
It's not an allegory, but the only thing I can compare to that would be the fact the coronavirus vaccine was out within months ostensibly from being developed, right, when everyone said we're doing it. So if the entire world says we're doing it, I think you know normal trade could say, yeah, this is big enough to say we're going to skip past lots of red tape and just do it. We've seen now real world example of shit that should have taken 4 or 5 years. It took months. Yeah. I mean, and when we talk about the Federation Charter later and how huge and how freaking complicated that thing is, I think then that argument for it took a while to kind of get all this stuff done would be like you'll get it more. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, the United States, for crying out loud, like a lot of people like don't know this, like we did not have the Constitution for the United States for many years after the Revolutionary War ended. Like a lot of people seem to think like, okay, General Howe got his butt kicked day 2, Stars and Stripes, God bless the United States of America. I think it was 12 years. I don't quote me on that. Revolutionary War history isn't my best strong point, but it's like I want to say it was around 12 years it took to get the Constitution of the United States finally ratified. But in the Bissigverse it took 50.
Sure, yeah.
but Stuart,
anyways, that's the establishment.
But Stuart, next slide though is a phenomenal example of the artwork, because holy shit, that looks good.
Yeah, yes. Michelle Ariel, folks. Like, holy crap, the one, the only Michelle Ariel. She does all of my character study portraits and a lot of like anything that's like alive or living in all the Bissigverse stuff you see, she draws it, and she is freaking awesome. One of like the best decisions I ever made was bringing her into this, because she gets Star Trek. She loves Star Trek. It shows loud and proud, and she really knocks it out of the park.
So what do you take from this then, Stuart? What do you think design wise? I mean, Marine's sort of a new thing for Trek. What do you think?
I think it looks good. I really appreciate it. He's been in the military. He's studied the military. It definitely has the feel, the progression up to this. So yeah, I think it's fantastic, and a lot of attention to detail.
So he's a senior lieutenant. Well, I don't think I'd call it Star Trek. Like if I was asked out of a hat which universe it's, I'd probably say more Babylon 5, just in grey, but it's a great design. Just
Battlestar Galactica, yeah.
But more sci-fi than that. Battlestar is more grounded. That has no big bonus color stripes. I mean, this has like a patch, rank pips, epaulets, has like everything, so it's kind of over the top for BSG. It's nice. I just certainly wouldn't say it was Star Trek, but I mean, Marine isn't
early BSG, leading into BSG.
Oh, I mean like classic BSG, like almost like a First Island War. That I could buy more. But I mean, Marine's such a weird one. I mean, it shouldn't look Starfleet. It's not Starfleet. It shouldn't look anything we've seen before, because it's literally the kill you branch. Yeah. It's the absolute opposite of Starfleet, so it should not be recognizable as Starfleet, because it isn't. It's the opposite. It's the Star Kill.
Yeah, I mean, when you guys in future lives, you're going to see a lot more Starfleet uniforms. You'll see some connective tissue between this and what Starfleet is wearing, but there are some substantial differences, and part of that's intentional, right? So because they're two branches of the government that do two very different things, and for Melissa question there about Starfleet Medical, to that point, their Starfleet Medical would be a branch inside of Starfleet. That wouldn't be like a separate organization. It would just be like Starfleet has like Starfleet Engineering, and all these other various aspects of it. Starfleet Medical is just like one of those components inside Starfleet.
Is there a particular reason for the red trouser and then the blue body?
Yeah, so it's orange. So the orange, the orange on the stripes of the leg are supposed to match the orange on the epaulets up top. So because there's so many, and we have a whole slide dedicated to this, so trust me, guys, we'll get totally into the weeds with this later. This is every branch has their own colors, and there's a lot of branches. So this is Orbital Assault, and they are blue and orange. And the significance behind that is the sky is blue, and when the old style drop pods would come out of the sky with all the fire around them, and you can see on his neck there, he's got his branch pin, which is basically an old drop pod with this fire around it coming out of the sky. So that's why Orbital Assault Infantry are blue and orange. And in like the U.S. Army, which I was in, every branch has their own colors, that is reflective on our dress uniforms. You can see there's slight little details on the uniform that have slight different color variations depending on what branch you're in. So mine was gold for the branch that I was in.
That is cool.
So.
I love that attention to detail. Somebody was asking earlier, Sergeant Montgomery, about paratroopers. So,
but Stuart, the poll. We got the poll.
Oh yes, we have a poll, guys. Go vote on that while you're enjoying this. How do you feel about Star Trek Enterprise? Love it, like it. It was okay, man, not good. So go vote.
How's it doing?
What?
So.
How's it doing? What's the result so far, Stuart?
Doing well. A lot of people seem to love it.
Cool.
I mean, they can look and see for themselves.
They can, but you're the Captain Foley, you know. But the next one.
This is David's show. I'm gonna let him leave.
Hey guys, remember to super chat for Trekyards too. Super chats are great. Let's get some super chats, guys.
We are almost 20 minutes in. But the next shot is definitely... That gives me very almost Mako vibes. It reminds me of Space Above and Beyond. I don't know if that was inspiration, especially with the colour scheme. But we see yet more tech, new guns, new rifles, new helmets. It's all new. It's all new.
And also, the big thing I'm surprised nobody mentioned, the races. That's not a human in there. That's a Drylaxian female in there, and that was an Axonari male in the upper picture.
I mean, she could just be her liver's problematic.
Yeah.
I mean, sepsis, I don't know.
Yeah, when you guys see some of the characters she's done for some of these aliens, it's crazy. But yeah, so this is the CAS system in true military fashion. Everything's acronym. Acronyms ad infinitum, guys. Get ready. There's going to be 9 million more. We should make a dictionary or something for the Bissigverse. But this is like the standard combat suit for what the Marines are doing right now. And there are some tie-ins to Star Trek, so it's not like totally insert random sci-fi spacesuit here. You'll notice there are some pretty in-your-face design connections between the helmet she's wearing and the Star Trek Enterprise helmets, and same thing with the breastplates and stuff. So it wasn't like totally like Free Willy make space suit stuff. There's a lot of thought went into the design of this to still try and make it look Trek-ish as much as that we can. A lot of stuff going on this screen. We got computers, we got life support, we got phaser weapons, we got head-mounted displays. That's what HMD stands for. We got sensors embedded in the helmet. We got communications, air filtration systems. We got drop pod harnesses, because yeah, that's right. These guys can be like strapped into things and dropped out of stuff. Life support, you name it. The suit is designed to be very modular and customizable depending on the mission. So like in the text blob here, you guys can read it on your own later. It can take exoskeletons. Like if you got a heavy backpack on, you got to hike through a mountain for 2 days, you strap on the exoskeleton. You can go swimming with it. You can operate in space with it, on the moon, underground, probably not in lava. I don't think we could really do that too well. But it's designed to be very adaptable to whatever the situation is. It's funny. One of the comments I got earlier was that people thought like, doesn't it kind of invoke a little bit of like a not a bad guy feel, but like you got like these masked troopers running around, and like that's not typically what we see in Star Trek, right? Usually nobody has any armor on, and if they do, their heads are usually exposed. And from a realism sense, like that would never happen, if you had even a shred of realism into it. Like if we really take it to its end extreme, like no away team on a random planet would ever go down for any reason in anything less than something like this. But that's Star Trek.
So you listed out quite a long set of things it can do. This is more advanced than anything we saw in Enterprise. So I'm assuming you kind of went with the other people shared tech. is there any limitations? Because it kind of sounds like a god suit, or is it weak at any point?
Yeah, I mean, as you can see, there's obviously some parts of the suit that don't have the plastoided armor on it for, and, you're still a fleshy thing inside of it. So if like an indirect fire weapon or something like lands right on top of you, it would stop some shrapnel, but the blunt force trauma of it would still probably blast you to bits. And it's not like it's not like you're running around with a shield power pack on. So, I mean, if you get shot, you get shot. It's just like the armor is there to try to absorb some of that energy. So like, the difference would be like the shoulder pauldron, right? If you took a square right on the shoulder pauldron shot with a phaser set to kill, like instead of it vaporizing a section of your arm, and part of your torso, it might just cut your arm off or just really severely burn your arm, but like part of you is not disintegrated, if you get what I mean.
My question is it more or less effective than Stormtrooper armor?
Much more effective than Stormtrooper armor, because the Empire looks cool but is big time dumb.
Yes. Let's do it. We have some audience questions. If you want to jump in those.
I
know. That's why I was teeing you in.
The Stanleys asked a question. Are you filling out the existing Federation charter or making up your own?
Making up my own.
Why is that?
Because I don't know of any quote-unquote full legit sources of the Federation Charter that exist. So if there is an official released one somewhere, please let me know. But
Melissa asked about tricorders. Is there any kind of scanning devices?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Very
There would be a scan. Like, so you got to remember, in a tactical situation, these people are getting shot at. They're shooting back. They're not going to really be out there going like, oh wait, hold on, let me fine tune my scanner. Like whatever immediate sensors they need are planted into your head. And hold on to that question, because we have a slide that directly answers, kind of really gets to the point of what you're asking about. So we'll come back to that later at a later slide.
Perfect. And Go Away says disruptors ?
No disruptors, phasers for these guys. Good guys have phasers. Bad guys have disruptors. This is Star Trek.
It's true. That is very true.
Right, next slide then.
And guys, super chat. Any questions you have for David? Show your support for him by super chatting and helping out the channel and him. So
yep, all the money goes to Trekyards. So give him super chat. I might have to throw super chat in if we don't get something soon here.
But what does the Starfleet Stellar Marine Corps do?
So this is the only slide in here that adheres to the rules of PowerPoint, where it's like, because there's rules of PowerPoint on how many words you're supposed to have. And this is just a quick summary of what you guys probably already thought they were doing. And, they do, trans-atmospheric assaults or transpheric operations. They do security on ships, on bases, on star bases, planet side and in space. They act as backup to the planet or race-specific planetary security forces, or like the National Guards of the various planets all over the place. They are kind of the Federation's go-to like natural disaster grunt troops. So like obviously if like there's like a huge natural disaster on a planet somewhere, Starfleet is deployed, but like they need a lot of bodies on the ground, like facilitating rescue operations and refugees and all that sort of assistance. Like they'll send the Marines in to help do that kind of stuff too. So
cool.
Yep.
Random asks, does the Marine Corps have heavy armor?
Yes, sir. We got slides. Just
coming up.
All right, let's go to the next
question. The question about the disruptors was, as in, would disruptors be any more or less effective versus the plastoid plates?
No, I mean, in my opinion, phasers versus disruptors in Star Trek is like American 5.56 bullets and Russian 5.54R bullets. It's a bullet. It's a little bit different.
It's like G.I. Joe red lasers versus Cobra blue lasers.
Yep.
Which always confused me, because blue's always good guys. So my brother would always tease me that the G.I. Joes were the bad guys because they had red.
So
anyway,
the only time I will make any sort of graphic apologies for this is this slide and the next one after that, because of my horrendous little PowerPoint graphics I put in here. But everything after this is awesome. So this, again, I don't want to get too in the weeds with this because I want to keep us moving along here so you guys can go back and read this stuff on your own. This is just kind of talking about the history of transpheric operations and like how it came to be. And this document at the very first page you'll see says Humanity Edition. So as an in-universe document, all the stuff in here is pertaining to basically the human-centric history and terminology with all this stuff. So the follow-on to that is, you know, and I'm not making these, but somebody else could if they want, is like there'd be a Vulcan version, an Andorian version, a Tellarite version of this, and these slides you're looking at right now would be talking about the Vulcan history of transpheric operations, and this is looking at the human history. And we have some World War III technology on the screen there, and this just basically talks about innovation versus counter-innovation, and that's the age-old story of military technology for all of history. Somebody makes something, somebody else counters it. Somebody makes something, somebody else counters it.
Oh, so you got the secret plans for the SLS rocket system from next year.
Yes.
Nice. Good job.
Yes, I did. Yeah. Spoiler alert, it doesn't work, but, you know, it's fine. We won't get into that. Somebody will throw something at me.
Hey, a shot of Enterprise.
Before we get to that, Mark Lawrence throws in $20 super chat.
Oh my God!
Thank you very much, Mark.
President.
And says no question.
David, salute. Salute the president, David.
Just enjoying listening to the fine details and explanations while I work.
Well, thank you, Mark. I love doing this stuff, as you can see. And yeah, the slide with the terrible draw on spaceships just kind of talks about the evolution of anti-gravity and load lifting into space. We are going to get ham into this later in lives that is not this one, but stay tuned for more on that later.
Cool.
And then the last slide there, you know, that guy should look familiar to you, Dr. Emery Erickson from Star Trek Enterprise. We talk a little bit about his contributions here, not so much his scandal, but kind of just some of the work that he's done. And then a quick graphic here kind of explaining in the Bissigverse, you know, talking about that innovation versus counter-innovation. And this, I just want to talk about this for a second here, because this bottom part of this slide is really critical to everything that comes after this, is that, you know, a lot of the number one Trekkies will say with this is like, Dave, my God, you put all this work in designing all this stuff. I don't get it. In Star Trek, we beam here, we beam there. Like everything is transporter. In Star Trek TV show, yes, but in Star Trek, the Bissigverse realism, right? Like you have to understand that's a military technology that has a military counter to it. So do you really think the Romulans or the Kzinti or the Klingons would have like just say, yep, you can just come on and beam 80,000 Marines down in 5 minutes? We would never, like, they would design systems to stop that from happening. And the two types of them are a pretty easy to use benign one where the transporting system is essentially just blocked. That's analogous to you raise shields and you can't use the transporter anymore, but you can't, in the realism Bissigverse, you can't very easily do like a Star Wars, oh, put a shield around the whole planet, done, got it, okay, easy. Like, or I think they did that in one of the Picard shows too, which I thought was interesting, but whatever. This is just a more realistic way of handling that. And then the second one is the scary one, which is really more of a deterrent. It works, but it's also a deterrent because, like, if you beam through that, you get through it and you're like deatomized on your way down the stream. So like you rematerialize like inside out essentially, and nobody wants that. So that's why the Federation Marine Corps had to design all this other technology in the event, hey, we have to go fight somebody who has transporter jamming. We still have to go fight. How do we get around it? So anyways, I just wanted to
Starfleet isn't the military, so we don't see them in those sorts of situations. So I don't think we've ever seen a situation, maybe Enterprise, but that was Xindi and they didn't have that weird tech anyway. They'd have beaming an assault team to actually go and kill people is not something ever TNG did. Maybe you could argue best of both worlds, but they weren't there to kill. And that was a weird situation anyway, they should have shields, whatever. So as soon as you say, well, if it's a versus, of course transporters are out of the equation, even if you spend every waking day countering the counter of the counter of the counter. You just blow them up at that point, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I mean, the whole huge plot device in Stargate, you know, their beaming tech, you beam a bomb.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
And then you win. I mean, you can beam a nuke. Yeah. It's a very good weapon.
Yeah.
And they don't like using it because, like, well, this is unethical. It is, but we could get killed. Okay, then. Fair enough.
Yep. Yeah, all is fair in love and war, my friends.
So speaking of, some ships. Stuart, we've got some ships. Stuart!
Oh, we have a lot of
some
ships
new
coming,
ships.
Folks. We have a lot of ships coming. We have a lot of ships coming.
The top one reminds me of a Star Wars freighter, the top one.
Yeah, so these are like quick sketches. So my boy Reed Cahill, I said Cahill last time. Cahill, all right, is how we say it, all right? I don't want him to yell at me on this live like he did last time. So these two ships are important because these are kind of the battle wagons for the Marine Corps and how they get around. So A Dodderon class assault carrier is analogous to the amphibious assault carriers the U.S. Navy is using right now. So these things are designed, purpose-built to support transpheric operations, transporter, landing craft, landing marines, supplying them onboard hospitals and maintenance facilities for their spacecraft and for their vehicles. Like, this ship is literally designed just to work for the Marine Corps and conduct these operations on a large scale too. So like this is like the Marine Corps like capital ship. And you know, at a certain point in the future, we will definitely get a 3D model made of this, and with all the fancy greebling details and all that fun stuff.
And are they ineffective in space combat, because you can't do all those things and have all those things? So it's very much a ship's front line, back line. They take out, these come in. Yep. It
would be a suicide run to send this ship into like frontline combat, just like our real world aircraft carriers today. They are not designed to go barreling into the front lines, right? Like, they sit back and like the aircraft fly out and bomb.
So would they be fast to match like an NX and justify losing all that internal volume to that sort of space, or are they going to be actively smaller and justify the space to all the other stuff they need? Because that sounds like they need so much. Because, you know, a science bay can be relatively small. A hospital can't be relatively small. There's only so much. You need an amount of space, and even just having a triage, equipment and supplies, that's a huge amount of space. You don't need it for science in the same way. So are these things pretty damn slow relative to fleets? They have to, you know, they slug down the fleet, but they obviously prioritize. Well, we want those extra 5 Marines that could take up a warp containment generator, or are they pretty fast still?
So this is something I thought about. I don't know if you're going to like my answer, but I'm just going to tell it to you. Is no. So the way the Marine Corps ships operate, it's not like Starfleet ships, right? Like, these things are not out and about. These assault carriers are not out and about patrolling willy-nilly random systems here and there. They are sitting in docks until they're used for something, right? So the thought process on everything you just talked about is like, boop, totally goes out the window. Very different way of thinking about it, because it is a point A to point B, and point B is where we're shooting at people. So the point A is the assembly area, or where they're collecting all the Marines and whatever, and then point B is we're going into combat. These ships are not out and about doing, like, you know, 8-month-long patrols in whatever system anywhere. So they are Warp 7 capable, like everything else in Starfleet, because these are Starfleet ships. Just for quick clarification, in case that wasn't made clear, these are vessels that belong to Starfleet that are attached to the Marine Corps. And so they don't say Federation Marine Corps on them, and the crew that man them are Starfleet, not Marines. They just work together. So these ships can keep up Warp 7 like everybody else. They are not super good to defend, and they have no offensive capability whatsoever. And they have an awful lot of storage space, but not so much storage space to the point where it prevents them from being able to maintain the Warp 7 standard for the Starfleet.
So it's more a case of, you know, my question wasn't exactly what you answered, but in essence, you've kept the engineering massive amount of space and just shoved out the torpedoes. That's what you've removed, rather than more military for less warp. You've just taken out all the okay.
Yeah, because you only have so much space, and like I said, this vessel is not designed to like fight. Like, it can defend itself. It's got some like point defense weapons and shields and counter battery systems on it, but like those are like not like.
But even why at that point?
And whatever.
But I mean, any ship trying to take them out for realsies can easily. I mean, at that point, don't bother. Just have the space for other stuff. If point defense can do nothing against anything, it's like why fighters are pointless, because fighters will be destroyed with one phaser blast, which means any capital ship pew 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 pew. They're pointless in most Trek.
In an ideal tactical situation.
When is it ever ideal, David?
Well, that's the point, though. Like, in a perfect picturesque battle, yeah, you're right. If everybody's doing their job right and there's no holes and nothing gets through, yeah. But like, you know, the fear is not so much like enemy cruiser snuck through and blasted the bejesus out of this for the point defenses. The fear is like, what if there was like a cloaked mine that got missed by the minesweepers, and this thing came in and it needed to take it out or something like that. So, food for thought.
Yeah, somebody Gorgonzola says the top one kind of looks like the Razor Crest a little bit. That's actually a good point.
Yeah, I see it. Wow.
Yeah.
I never thought about that until right now. I see it, though. That's good. That's a compliment, though. Razor Crest is a beautiful ship.
Stuart, is this the way? Is that what you're telling me?
This is the way.
Okay.
This is the way.
Next slide.
And Mr. Anderson says
we didn't talk about the other ship.
The Melbadin feels like an Enterprise era Sovereign or Intrepid with a question mark.
So
is it the kind of the comparative?
It's small. It's a very small ship. It's kind of like a shuttle on steroids. I know like these things aren't next to each other, so like you don't get the size comparison, but the assault frigate is significantly smaller than the assault carrier, and it's basically a warp capable assault shuttle, as they call it a frigate, but that's just because it actually has like weapons on it that can fight with, because it's like it doesn't have the world's largest internal volume, so maybe it can only carry a company or two and like maybe like 3 to 4 vehicles in it, but like it can like fight its way through problems. So like if it was a contested landing and like we have to get Marines through this while other ships are still in front of us shooting at us, like they would send this thing in. Much smaller storage capacity, but it retains all of its combat capabilities, like photon torpedoes, phaser banks, full-blown shields, you name it, this thing has it, and it can fight. So that's why it's called a frigate, because it's... So, anyways, sorry.
Squadra Course throws in a $2 super chat and says, yay for fan-made Trek content. So thank you, Squadra Course. And thank you, David, for doing the content. Zach, the only real question is, do the Federation Marines say Semper Fi?
Let's see. I don't know. I wrote a Marine code kind of based off of because we all like the Army, the Marine, the Navy, the Air Force. They all have like this Airman code, the Marine Creed, blah 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 blah. I wrote one for the Marine. I don't know if they say Semper Fi. That would be a very Earth thing and from one nation on Earth. So I don't think that would transition over. It's a funny idea, but I don't think that they would be saying it, because like what an Axanari officer in the Federation Marine Corps would have no ability to comprehend why that's even relevant in the Marine Corps, or Vulcan or anybody else. SWAS time, my favorite ship, SWAS.
Ooh.
The Space AWACS. Woo!
Yes, Merlin class. That's very cool looking.
Mm-hmm. The Spaceborne Warning and Sensor System, the SWAS. So,
it's very reminiscent of the ring ship style.
Yeah,
I know those aren't warp rings, so.
Yeah, those are subspace sensor systems, but there's like you definitely see some pretty hardcore connective design tissue there with the old school ring Enterprise, which was definitely design inspiration behind this. But this is another ship that will definitely be receiving its own 3D model at some point in the future. And for anybody who's in the military and knows what an AWACS is, the Airborne Early Warning and Control System aircraft, like these are like the most important thing any modern military has in its arsenal, because this is how you see everything. And what's crazy is like you have to remember, it's not just the bad guys. This also lets you see your own stuff. Like I think in the world of strategy games, just video games in general, people take for granted the fact that you can see where all your own forces are because that's the way the game is designed. But in like the real world battle space, that doesn't work like that. And having systems like the AWACS or the J-Star, the Rivet Joint, whatever you name it, like, yeah, we can keep tabs on what the enemy is doing and get early warning on them, but we can also see what our guys are doing for battle space management. That is a very complicated real world thing that would definitely still be relevant in the way later Star Trek time, because it's all about battle space management, so the commanders can have their intelligence, know what threats are coming at them, where they're coming from, and they know where their forces are and how to correctly deploy what they have to counter those threats. So like
but given that the NX has long range, mid range, short range sensors that can go light years, that can detect anything and any number of ships, how does this differ? I mean, if range is the only thing, okay, great, but the NX can already detect 500 ships, and that's part of its design. It's the frontline best ship. How does this go so far beyond? Is that then more powerful than a Galaxy class? I mean, are you jumping technology ladder, or is it just doing something different?
That's where you have to put a trough between Bissigverse and existing Star Trek canon, because like we're gonna have a lot of those, and like we're gonna go through all of this. You guys will see what the NX era of the Bissigverse looked like in later, and it's not 100% what you saw on the TV show. And the Enterprise has great sensors, and they can see out, through a solar system and maybe a light year in front of them or whatever, but that's just for like basic like vague
that's it
stuff. And
holy shit.
Yeah, and for like, well, light year is huge, man.
It's not it's really not. It's for Starfleet.
Warp 5 when we get into how like we do the handle thing here, it's like they have like longer range navigational sensors so they don't bang into things, but like the idea that you could like track and determine like 10 ships from 2 light years away and get bearings and configurations, heading, course, and speed on them, and readouts on their tactical armaments and stuff like that at that far out, in my opinion, that would not be something you would have on an NX ship. To your point, something like the SWAS may not be needed by the time we get to Picard's era with the Galaxy class, because sensor technology in the Bissigverse at that point would have developed to the point where it's like, oh yeah, well, we don't need this because every ship has sensors that are as powerful as this thing now. But
so you're kind of nerfing some stuff because the advanced suit was better than NX, but other stuff you're nerfing quite drastically, even though they're using Andorian stuff. So that means you're nerfing everybody. By that logic, because they would use the best stuff, because your stuff is all about cooperation and shared military. So that means Andorians and Vulcans, despite being 500 years more up to date, have not developed more than a light year in advance.
Well,
that's
in the
shocking.
TV show, you also have to remember in the realism.
And they had like spy shit, so I guess the Vulcan. That's the problem. We start decanonizing things. It's tricky because like there's so many threads. That nerfs everything. Wow.
So hear me out here. In the TV show, when you see the Vulcans or anybody advanced do something right, like you got to be real with the truth of it is, let's pretend they got all this perfect. I know everything about this ship from 5 light years away now, right? That's one ship. In a real and in a Bissigverse battle space operation, there are tens of thousands of things that these ships need to track simultaneously. Not just the incoming contacts, everything going on in that solar system, every rock, every asteroid, everything needs to be tracked and mapped during a real tactical situation. So like these SWAS style ships are tracking tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of objects. Not all of them are ships and whatnot, of course, but like I think you have to understand the level of magnitude of power of these sensors, and the fact that this whole ship is designed just to do this. It is completely non-comparable in terms of power to whatever the Vulcans had on their cruisers, or the Andorians, or Earth, or whatever, where those ships that are out doing something and out in the greater galaxy exploring and whatever, and like you see on the TV show, yeah, maybe they can get a god readout on a contact or a ship or something out there, but it's like 1 or 2 ships. They're not.
That makes a lot more sense in terms of scale.
They're not tracking 100,000 things, and and different. When we get into our Starship briefs more detailed than this, like there's different kinds of sensors on real world Navy ships, and there will be different kinds of sensors on Star Trek ships. And so like the navigational sensors of, hey, we don't want to warp into a comet or an asteroid at warp 5, like those things, yeah, they can see pretty far out. But if I'm trying to analyze an incoming contact, determine if it's a ship, what kind of weapons it has, its power signature, stuff like that, then your range starts decreasing back quickly. And then the next question is like, okay, well, can I get a target lock on this thing? How far can my phasers and torpedoes actually reach? Things like that. Well, then you start seeing the,
It's like seeing a card in the distance. You see it, you know that it's a car. So they can sense that there's a ship out there. Then you tight beam it, you focus it, you get a telescope or binoculars, zoom in on it, then you can get more details. That's how that's how regular sensors would work.
It's just a bit funny, the big conceit of Star Trek. We can literally bend space-time and do warp, and we can't do sensors. That's far harder than sensors at that level.
We are doing sensors. I just don't think you're appreciating the realism scale.
No, that's why I like it. Like, this ship is not useful 9 times out of 10, because almost every situation, a ship can do it. It's when you start having fleet battles, then it's useful. That's why it's built for. This thing is useless most of the time, because every ship could do it.
Like this is not something that would just be patrolling around, the
it's probably going to be like 2 or 3 of these anyway, because there's...
This is like a...
It's beyond specialist.
Right, this is a hyper purpose-built vessel specifically constructed.
See, that makes more sense.
For the point of managing big battles, essentially.
I mean, and also with the AWACS now, they only launch them when there's they got to find out what's going on in the combat area.
Yeah,
they don't fly them around for the hell of it.
Because another thing about this design, it must have several computer cores, because it isn't about the sensors at that point. Because like I said, the range is not going to be the problem when you have this sort of ship. It's how much data you bring in. It's going to be 50 times what an X could bring in. So
heavily AI modified, and remember, the entire crew is on this thing to do this job, right? So it's not like there's like huge swaths of other departments of people there. Like, you have the crew that make the ship go, and then everybody else who's not in that is like involved in this sensor analysis.
Not to throw you one little addition, but maybe you could say this ship had the first M1 computer. The first Daystrom inspired go back, because maybe a new computer system evolved and they allowed the ship to do, because it's so much more grandiose. Maybe a new computer system was invented.
I don't know. It's almost like we had a Daystrom character in a previous episode we did. I wonder if that would come back. Who knows? I'm not saying that we put Robert Daystrom's father in the other book if you go download it and read it, but who knows? Maybe he would show back up if we did an episode on this ship. You never know. I did get artwork made for him, so that's a sign.
Maybe.
Maybe. Let's have some questions here.
Yes, sure. Questions.
I don't know.
I'll let David pick, because I'm just.
Yeah, I just want to look here because I see there are a lot. We need more super chats, people. Let's go super chat. The Marines actually have their own martial art. Yeah, they do. Yes, that is a real thing, and I'm not a good fighter. I was a logistics guy when I was in the military, but yes, that is a real thing, and absolutely the Federation Marine Corps would totally have their own mixed martial arts combining, judo, Vulcan, Andorian. I don't think the Tellarites have martial arts. They don't strike me as a martial art kind of people. Maybe they have like a Tellarite sumo thing. Maybe, I don't know. I don't think that would really be practical to what the Marines do. But yeah, absolutely, they would have their own hand-to-hand fighting style. And think about how cool that would be with like all these various species kind of inputting into it. It'd be like the meta martial art of like all things combined. And then even in Star Trek, our transporters are easily blocked. Yeah, so exactly. There are for Leighton, there's a lot of different ways transporters can get messed with, which is why, the Melbourne class is important. And the next slide too that Sam's on right now has some important stuff with that. And I cannot wait for everybody to lose their minds about the fact that we put wings on this thing. And I am so ready for that. I don't know if you want to just go straight to that or start at the top one and work our way down, but I am ready. So bring it on if you want.
Sounds like you want to troll us with wings, yeah.
Before we get there, Squadron Course throws in $1 with no comment, but thank you so much, Squadron Course. It means a lot.
Thank you.
All right, get to the wings.
All right,
Thunderbolt 3, I love that. Does it have a Burt gun?
Oh yeah, this is another one we're definitely going to get a 3D model made of, and this is infantry's best friend, we called it. So of course heavily inspired by the A-10. It is going to be Star Trek's A-10 for the Federation Marine Corps, and so we'll just go right for it. Why does it have wings, Dave? Why does it have weapon pylons like a plane from the 20th century? What have you done, you fool?
I mean, I could answer that. It's not that hard a reason, really.
The very straightforward thing is, and if you read our anti-gravity slide 8, it'll talk about it. Anti-gravity can be jammed. When ships in the Bissigverse are flying around inside planetary atmospheres, they're not just gliding on magic dust powder mushrooms across the atmosphere, and like they're not just sitting there with their thrusters on max firing down to the ground to keep it from crashing into the planet's surface. They have systems underneath of it, and you look at the Discovery class we did and the Javelin class we did, all of that is modeled in there on the bottoms of the ships. There are anti-gravity systems on the undersides to keep them up and afloat so they don't come crashing down with gravity. And the question is, if this craft is designed to operate inside a planetary atmosphere, what happens when anti-gravity goes off? If anybody's played Star Wars Empire at War, there's the repulsor lift jammer. Everybody's anti-gravity vehicles comes crashing down and you're screwed. So this thing has very powerful engines, and if it has to, it just kind of converts to an old school manual flight model mode where it's got wings, it's got lift, it's got engines, and it goes. And you'll see in the details there's even little like flap cutouts there and stuff. So if everything goes to shit and the anti-grav is turned off, this thing can still fly, it can still fight, and can still do everything it needs to do.
That's great. I love that. Before we move on, Crazy Ghostbusters throws in $5, so thank you. Star Trek Enterprise needs to come back so I can have the ending it's meant to have.
Oh,
Star
God.
Trek ended too soon. Yeah.
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 And then above that is the Peleliu class assault shuttle, and this is for a lot of our history war movie buff fans. Everybody here knows what a Higgins boat is, I would hope, or at least has some rough concept of what that is. Those are the little dinghy boats in the water you see in Saving Private Ryan before they come running out to the beach. Pretty much every war movie that's ever had an amphibious operation and it has a Higgins boat in it, or of some make and model. And this is the Higgins boat of the Starfleet. So one slight doctrinal difference between the Higgins boat of World War II and this thing is that this is like the mass-produced base shuttle line for the Starfleet Marine Corps to get around and whatever. The Melbadoran class is going to go in first and do all the shooty stuff. So the Peleliu class has some defensive systems to it, but like it can't operate on its own. It can't take too bad of a hit, and ideally you don't want these things flying into like heavy anti-aircraft fire and warships and stuff like that.
Well, Gorgonzola asked a good question. Then why doesn't the shuttle have wings? If you jam the ones anti-grav there,
so
likely to have 20 dead men.
No, you're correct. This was just a stylistic choice. There are deployable wings that come out of the shuttle. I just didn't want to draw them in there because I thought if everybody hated the wings, they'd be like, Dave, why are all these wings in here?
Well, I was going to say as well, I mean, the NX shuttle pod had wings. This is the standard of the era.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the basics. They should all have wings in theory. That's kind of how they fly.
Right, yeah. So there are deployable wings that can fold out from underneath of it. I don't even know if I wrote that in there because I was talking with Reed about it when we were designing it, and like I guess you wouldn't really see it because we're looking like at a top-down angled view, so you wouldn't see that detail in there. But yeah, this thing would have wings that kind of flap out and open like this if it needed to, so it wouldn't just go like woo, bye. So.
Cool. So next we've got some more. Oh my god, ground vehicles. Oh my god.
Yeah, somebody was asking about ground vehicles, so we have a ground vehicle system.
Three.
Not just 3. We got a hell of a lot more than 3, but I figured Sam would get mad at me if I gave him 25 different pictures of vehicles.
I think Stuart would get more mad. Stuart would get more mad.
Three would suffice. And they just show like different ones. So the way the militaries of the future work is basically we want like modular chassis systems. So just quick disclaimer so nobody like hate attacks us. I am not saying anything pro-Russian with this. I'm just referring to their equipment. So the Russians built the T-15 Armada tank chassis system where, technically T-14 Armada. And the idea was we build one tank chassis system and then the guts of it come in, out, and we make it whatever we need it to be. That is a very logical way of doing it from a maintenance and interoperability standpoint. When you have one chassis that can kind of do everything, you just take the guts out and put new guts in it. The United States and NATO and other nations will definitely start doing more and more of that as the future goes on, because military equipment's expensive, and this helps make it cheaper and easier for you to design transport systems. If everything is using the same basic frame, it is way easier for you to design storage systems, maintenance systems, transport systems inside spacecraft and stuff like that. So there's like 100 different configurations of this damn chassis depending on what the mission is. We have 3 of them depicted here. We have an indirect fire system, an armored fighting vehicle, and an APC. For our military buffs, your indirect fires are like your Mastas and your the M109s. You got your AFVs here. These are your Bradleys, your BMP2s, BMP3s, Warriors for England. You got your APC over here. These are like Canadian LAVs, American Strikers, stuff like that. And then also to the matter of redundancy here, you'll see we have wheels on some and wheels not on some. The wheels are retractable. Same thing with the anti-gravity stuff. So these are fully anti-grav capable ships that can hover and like kind of like go anywhere. Anti-gravity gets jammed, the wheels emergency kick out, thrusters blast off on the side of it, and it comes down gently and doesn't come crashing down to planet Earth. And some of them would even have parachute like a design style systems on them, and if this happens, and then it just drives around like a regular vehicle. mobility is drastically reduced, but it's not like the end of the world, because it's like at jamming anti-grav, the one nice thing about it is if the enemy is jamming your shit, guess what? Their stuff doesn't work either. You can't like selectively turn gravity off in a region for somebody and not for somebody else with the way anti-gravity systems work in the Bissigverse. So, it levels the playing field. So if the enemy only has anti-grav vehicles and they think they're being smart by just turning it off because your tanks are better than theirs, well, too bad, joke's on you. We can just drive our tanks around and then come kill you later with those. So there's a lot of text blob stuff in here. Many different types of weapon systems can be put on these to do many different types of missions. Everything from medical evacuation to indirect fire support to main battle tank style combat, sensors, command posts, little mobile sheds and shacks, you name it, it does it all. And there are a huge number.
Makes a good.
Well, I had a question, but before I saw that, I had a question that's similar. But who are these fighting?
So, whoever needs to be fought. I mean, so in the Bissigverse, there's a war with the Kzintis in the 2170s, late 2170s, and you're definitely going to see these in action because there was a substantial amount of planetary side fighting between Federation and Kzinti forces, and the Federation Marine Corps was doing the brunt of that fighting in that conflict.
But why wouldn't you just use the ships most of the time, or bomb them or such? Because ground vehicles are sort of antiquated by its very nature, and you have aerial everything, or bombing people, or transporters, etc. Like, I'm assuming these were designed to fight. Because so back to basics. So Earth's at peace. We're not fighting anybody. You don't need to have these sort of vehicles. They're not being designed new ones. They stop. Then you have the Romulan War, or Kzinti War, whatever. So these were designed to fight a specific alien race that had ground combat. Because why would you do these innately? I assume they were designed to fight another ground force to go mano a mano with an anti-grav base. They weren't just there because they had them. Because why would Earth design anything like this to kill their own people? I mean, I'm not going to give you the long one. There's a YouTube channel, shameless plug, called the Templin Institute. They did an hour-long YouTube video on exactly what you just said. So viewers, if you want an hour-long explanation of this, go watch their video where they literally answer Sam's question. And the Dave answer for it, the quick answer, is same logic that the Templin Institute uses, is that you have diminishing returns when you're firing weapons from space down on planets, right? Because going through planetary magnetic fields and atmospheres makes the weapons less powerful, less accurate. There's other considerations you have to take into effect, especially with direct energy fire weapon systems onto planets,
like enemy
right?
fleets in orbit as well, taking out your ships.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's like you have to understand, like, and in the Bissigverse, we're gonna have a good set piece battle that looks at this, the Battle of Sektaroth Toten, which we've mentioned in previous episodes, where there was a big ground melee going on, where the Federation and the Kzinti were both fighting planet side, and on the Kzinti section of the planets, they had localized area shields up that prevented planetary bombardment or direct attacks or direct beam-ins. So, and the Kzinti had their own ground vehicles too. So,
but if you're doing bombardment, though, ships in orbit have warp cores, which are going to have infinitely more power than any ability in a ground vehicle. They're going to have so much less power. It's not even worth, like, it's shields. So that's just designed to kill other ground vehicles. But then again, you fire a phaser from orbit. Yes, it might be diminished, but it's still infinitely more powerful than anything these can shoot. Or a torpedo, which is also even more powerful.
You got to maintain that ship in orbit and be able to target the surface if there's any kind
but as soon as you put these things down, the enemy are going to fire them and destroy them outright. Because these things can't have shields enough.
You can drop these covertly, more or less. Warp in, warp out. Drop these, have them attack in a day or so when they get to their target. So you're not a big fucking sign. A big sign above the planet going, look at our ships. Look, this is where we're
I'm pretty sure you can detect someone coming in.
In the content we cut out from this, we had several slides dedicated to this. So, and the graphic we're using for it, and this hopefully helps maybe make this a little more clear for you. And it's kind of cartoony, but I think you'll get the point. We have a big freaking ball. That is a planet, and there are hundreds of anti-orbital weapon systems on it, right? And then we have one ship over here, right? So if you're doing a planetary invasion, right, and when you look at the surface area of the planet with weapons that can see you and can shoot at you, and you're one ship, or hell, even if you're a fleet of 100 ships coming in, versus the size of a planet where there could be thousands.
But also, but the ship can go hundreds of miles. This thing can go dozens of miles. I mean, the speed of travel makes you launch 5 vehicles. They might take 15 hours to go. What a ship can take 30 seconds. And any photon torpedo can easily blow any of these up. These haven't got shields or weapons enough.
Assuming the photon torpedo makes it to the surface, the enemy is going to have CIWS and counter battery
torpedo
systems.
batteries. Yeah, I mean, all they have to do is fire. Any ground-based torpedo would be stronger than these micro torpedoes, so they would blow it up instantly.
Well, I mean, you have to remember, like, let's pretend we have a well-fortified planet on the border somewhere, like, they have tens of thousands of very large, very powerful ground-based phaser systems pointed at ships in the sky, where at any given moment, 100 of those barrels could all fire on one ship at the same time, and then also ad infinitum numbers of photon torpedo launchers on the surface. You could hide them in any apartment building, cave, shed, anywhere on the planet, and at a certain point, yeah, we have counter battery systems on the ships, but the amount of incoming fire you would receive would be absurd. I mean, you actually have a little bit of a taste of this in Deep Space Nine when the Klingons fight Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine has so many weapons that they can fire on the ships. But David,
if you're saying that level of scale, you're saying thousands, then no number of ships in orbit will make a difference. And certainly you can't land vehicles if you're being attacked by thousands of torpedoes. I mean, when you get to this sort of scale, everyone's getting massacred. What is 3 little ground vehicles going to do?
On real world, basing it on real world battles as well.
I know, but Star Trek logic. I know.
You got anti-aircraft. You got.
Yeah.
You just gotta.
No, I'm taking it. It's just interesting.
You should really watch the Temple Institute video because they have.
What's that about? What's specifically that? What's the specific topic? What are they?
They talk about why in big space settings like Star Trek or Star Wars or whatever, their argument is here's why you will always need these things. And they're talking about what I'm not just land vehicles, but like, a Marine Corps, a planetary fighting force, because the argument they have in the video says, why bother? Just photon torpedo bombard the entire planet's crust into oblivion and be done with it, right? And they totally go into why that would never be a thing, because you need various scales of escalation. Photon torpedo bombardments, remember, photon torpedoes are antimatter warheads, man. Like, these things are not like little runt puny MLRS rockets flying across the battlefield. Like, these are like, they could be construed as nuclear weapons because they have antimatter warheads in them. So, like,
sometimes you don't want sometimes you want a surgical strike.
Well, and like, what if there's civilians?
Targets and
what if there's civilians down there? Like, what if you have a situation where a Kzinti ground force landed and seized a Federation planet, and they're embedded in cities all over the planets with Federation civilians in them all over.
It just seems unlikely you could get a ship in out of all those artillery being, you should warp a ship in and gets killed by fire. You're not going to get into the atmosphere. You're not going to land ships. You're going to get hit by the ground defenses, and then now you've got some vehicles that can't travel quick enough to get anywhere.
You're never going to get all of them, right? So
then you're suicide troops, aren't you? If there's that much fire and you've got 50,000, 50,000 also all armed people.
Samuel, how do they get tanks and ground vehicles over in Iraq?
It's about.
But they don't have photon torpedoes that can. What do you mean? They haven't got 5,000 photon torpedoes ready to fire.
This content out.
Yeah, so different.
We're going into it anyways.
Well, it's Star Trek scale. Anyway, next one.
No, it's just it's
a fun debate,
Sam,
but I just have more Star Trek thought. He has more real military, but those scales don't necessarily apply when you go that big.
The second half of this presentation.
I know, but that's fun. It's fun to go against because it's like you're pushing further than the logic of Trek, so it's fun.
Yeah, the second half of this presentation was all about a hypothetical transpheric operation where we run through the entire thing from start to finish of what it looks like, and it's all about providing windows and stuff. And I guess we'll just get into that when we do this. So for everybody who loves all this tea being spilled everywhere right now, you'll get to see plenty more of it if we end up doing part 2 of this, because part 2 is all what he's just talking about. Like, it's the whole point of the damn thing. So,
next slide.
Anyways, we know what to do to trigger Sam now, everybody. So
I just know Star Trek, man. I'm just doing the Star Trek.
Yeah.
Next thing.
It's a different version of Star Trek. So the Marine Corps structure, this gets a little bit into what somebody else was mentioning previously when they were talking about Starfleet Medical as a branch of Starfleet. This is the branches in the Marine Corps. So they are specialized to the task, right? So you have orbital assault infantry for what we were just having that little debate about. You have lunar assault for that on a moon, astro assault for when you're doing it just in deep space, boarding enemy ships or boarding enemy space stations, mountain assault, subterranean, aquatic, and urban specialized fighting forces. And inside all of these, so like, for example, the example I use in the top of the slide here says a logistician who specializes in logistics for lunar assaults would have a very different skill set than a logistician who specializes in subterranean fighting, right? That's two very different ways of doing logistics. So like, you know, mountain assault or subterranean assault branches would have their own logisticians, and lunar assault would have their own logisticians. And you apply that logic to everything in these branches. So each one of these branches has their own medical, their own maintenance, their own recon, their own armor, their own logistics, their own intelligence system, gathering systems, and they all are hyper specialized for fighting in the realm that they're set to be. So the largest of them is the orbital assault branch, and by far that's the largest of them. I would say the OAB is probably larger than all the rest of them combined, probably, because that's like the core of what the Marine does, and that's where their main bulk planetary fighting forces are located, in that branch. And I just made like different branch pins and stuff for them because I thought that, you know, it would be nice to see that, because in the real world military, in the U.S. Army anyways, we have every branch has like their own little symbol with their own little history behind it. So, you know, I tried to make the pins kind of fun and reminiscent to like what the branches are actually dealing with and doing, like the real world Army branch pins are. There's a historical significance behind why branches wear what they wear, and it kind of goes with what they do. So these are the pins that you would see, and that orbital assault branch pin is the same pin on the lapel of the Axonary officer that we saw up top there. So
Cool.
Starship Troopers meets Star Trek. Yes.
Yeah, it's very much what it is. Yeah.
Yes. You can't go around nuking every country you don't like, Sam. Can't do it in Star Trek either. It's imagine if like the island of Cuba said something we don't like, and some rogue Cuban trooper fired a bullet into Guantanamo Bay. Like, the answer cannot be, well, break out the hydrogen bombs and the nuclear submarines, Cuba. You're donezo. Like, that's not like how real world works. Sorry, we're not going back into it. I had to say that. Okay, so for the identification markers, I have a whole library of like hundreds and hundreds of these, and like we'll use them as needed. This was just to kind of give you a general look of and feel for how the unit identification markers work. Anybody who's been in the real militaries of planet Earth, no matter what country you come from, you have your own version of this. Right now, all the NATO countries have a standardized identification unit system marker. So, you know, good guys are in rectangles, bad guys are in rhombuses, and good guys are green and the bad guys are red. And like, you know, you see a cross and that's infantry. You see like a round thing, that's tank, things like that. This is the Bissigverse Starfleet Marine Corps version of that. And since warfare in the future is infinitely more complicated and more diverse, we have infinitely more unit symbols and logos and things like that. And this was just to give you a rough overview of what some of them are. And then the scaling system on the side is important, because that tells you what size element of stuff you're looking at, right? So, you know, a fire team of 2 people has a dot. A squad, which is like 5 people, has like, you know, 2 dots, and a platoon, which is, you know, 4 or 5 squads of people, has 3 dots. And that concept just keeps building. So whatever you'll see it in the next slide here in a second, whatever the logo inside of it is, that's what they do. And then the stuff in the brackets on the outside is, you know, how big that element is. The number on the bottom is what the unit designator is, and if it has stars above, that's usually a range denominator. So for example, like if you had an artillery system, like mortars would maybe be like a small mortar system would have like 1 star, because it's a short range weapon system. And yes, there's mortars in Star Trek. They get mortared in Deep Space Nine when Bashir and Jake go to that planet and the Klingons are attacking. They freaking get mortared like twice. So there are mortars in Star Trek. That's canon. So that's what this slide is. This is just to give people over. Stuart, did you want to say anything about this?
No, I don't have any questions about it. You explained it pretty well, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. There's some battles in Trek, like ground-based battles, just don't make any sense.
Yeah, and yeah, totally. But
Stu, if you want to read out the poll, we've got 113 votes. We can close it out.
The poll: how do you feel about Star Trek Enterprise? Winners: love it, 54%. 32% of you like it. 12% it was okay, and meh, not so good at 3%.
Which is very low, actually. Could have been way more.
Hey, remember to super chat. We like Trekyards. We want to super chat. We want to see Stuart and Sam fight more. So super chat and make them argue again.
Not fighting.
And then Gorgonzola. The branches, I wouldn't say that. It depends on the situation and the towed artillery. So what towed artillery would look like in this sense is like a very large, like basically like a anti-ship phaser battery that's deployed onto a planet. Like it's freaking huge. Like we'll show you pictures of this stuff later. Like these are not like things that just like meander around the battlefield. Like they're towed in with tugs and other shuttles and stuff, and then like dropped in place and left there doing what they're doing. But anyways, next slide. Our micro marines are here. Michelle drew these micro marines, and these were like her favorite thing, was to like do these little baby marines. So
like those
I like
muscle figures from the 80s. It's great.
Yeah, no, well, that's what it was kind of. She looked at. She's like, so
Yeah.
when we were talking about it, we're like, so you mean like little green like army trooper things? I'm like, yes. So
soldiers.
yes, yep. Essentially, that's what we want here. So this just shows what the breakdown of a Marine orbital assault platoon would look like. Everything about the Marines is modular and flexible, and it's all about changing the structure of the platoon to what the mission is. And anybody who's ever looked at orders of battle or like the YouTube channel Battle Order or something like that, like the graphic you see on the right here should like immediately start triggering you for thinking like, oh, I know what that's supposed to be, for a battle order matrix chart, where it shows like the headquarters. So that's the headquarters for the 98th Orbital Assault Infantry Company, and it's a company because they got the little line on the side and the dot on the other one, and 98 for the 98th, and that's the logo for Orbital Assault Infantry. We have 4 platoons, and then of infantry up top, we have mortars, we have anti-air, we got recon, and we have engineers also attached to them in other platoons that are not depicted in this picture here. This picture spread out here, you'll see on the top bracket, we have the 1172nd company. That's what this company is configured as. So it's infantry heavy, doesn't have a lot of anti-tank stuff. It's got 2 medics, 2 sharpshooter snipers, and it's not really hyper specialized to anything. It's just kind of like generic infantry blob. There you go. So that's what this is.
And what sort of alien to human ratio would this be?
Fully intermixed. So I think we talked about this a little bit in the past. Now I know these all look like humans just for showing the picture. I'm not gonna say that this would be illegal, but I think it would be a PR fiasco and like would make the news if there was ever anything in the Bissigverse where like, oh yeah, here's a company of all humans, aliens not welcome. Like you have to remember like if the best microcosm I can give you is, imagine if instead of the Federation, you looked at the United Earth, right? And all of the nations of Earth, forget World War III never happened. All the nations of Earth right now all merged together into one government with one military, right? We're doing it tomorrow. How would you feel as someone from the West, United States, Europe, if we created a new United Earth Marine Corps and 99% of it is made up of North Korean and Chinese troops? Like, yeah, exactly. how would you feel about that arrangement? So like, if we were to do something like that, we would say, hey, there has to be like a mandated diversity quota, not because we're spinning some wokey yokel jokel stuff. It's because it's a matter of building trust, right? If the forces are intermixed, they learn to trust each other better, and the various planets, peoples, nations, like they're like, oh yeah, well nothing. It's not like some crazy bad blood between the Vulcans and the Andorians is going to spill over, and all of a sudden the Federation Marine Corps, which is made up of entirely Andorians, is going to come and shoot all the Vulcans. It's like no, like that would never happen because all of our echelons at every level of the military are fully intermixed. So you would never have a situation where that could happen.
So no USS Intrepid full of only Vulcan crew members.
Right. Like I would almost go so far as to say, if I end up writing the Starfleet charter in addition to the Federation charter, I would honestly say that would be something that would be written into the thing at its inception, saying that's illegal and you're not allowed to do that. Honestly, is how far I would push that in the Bissigverse. And the same would apply to the Marine Corps. So everything is as intermixed as frickin' possible in the Bissigverse, because that's what would happen if we actually went and tried to go build the Federation with these races. That is what would happen. There's no way the Tellarites and the Andorians would be okay with Starfleet and the Marine Corps being 99% human and being like the main military body of this joint government that they're part of. That would never be acceptable.
Yeah. See, well, everybody complains about that with the ship names too. They're all Earth-based ship names, pretty much. So, yeah.
Which are not in the Bissigverse. Very diverse name.
Oh yes, you got some good names for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what is next?
This is a brigade breakdown, so we don't have to spend a lot of time on this. This is for the military nerds who just really like battle order stuff. As I was an officer in the military at a brigade headquarters company, right? So these kind of things were my life. If we have any fans out there who have shared in that experience, you'll love this slide because it shows the thought process behind how these larger unit structures are put together and what goes into them, and it's all flexible, right? So like they can move and change these units out as needed for whatever the mission is. We have like an attack force, the 27th. We have a support battalion, the 77th. We have a special troops unit, the 13th. We have air assault wing, which is essentially your air support for everything you're doing, for the 43rd. And then we have our armor assets, which are the 118th down there. So.
Sci-Fi Quest says, I like this. I think Star Trek has been missing a ground-based force. Yeah.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Especially early on. I think it'd be important, but... Okay, what is next here?
So the next slide is a big wall of text, and I don't really want to spend a lot of time on this. This is just for honestly, I probably should have taken this slide out because this is more pertains to the second half of this operation of the slide deck that we took out, where we walk you through an actual invasion of a system and what the various parts of it are going on. This is talking about the different kinds of operations that can be done. And at another live, we'll probably put this slide back in the next one if we end up doing part 2 of this. And this will all make much more sense there. But for the nerds who just want to know what the different kind of missions are that are done, that's the mission deck.
What's the other category called?
Sorry?
What's the other category called?
Other category.
Well, there's always going to be something that you're not planning for. If it's so set out, what happens if it's something different?
Well, these are like big these are big strategic level operations you're looking at here. Again, and I don't know if this is in here. I think we took this slide out too.
I'm just gonna make a joke, but I don't know if there's just an other folder for like
interdimensional.
Well,
everything isn't listed.
No.
Yeah.
Because it's strategic level, right? So in military planning, everything's always these 3 levels. Every nation on Earth uses this system: strategic, operational, and tactical. Strategic is like D-Day, Operation Overlord, okay? Operational is like the attack on Cannes, if we're sticking with the D-Day reference here. And then the tactical level is like, we have the 118th Company fighting on Maple Street, and they're trying to outflank a German Panzer that's in an intersection. So from a strategic operation standpoint, there is nothing that wouldn't be encapsulated on this thing, because you're talking like galactic level events here. And so, it's not like, well, what do we do if they outflank us to the rear? Like, that is not where this conversation happens at this level. So hopefully, again, maybe I should probably just taken this slide out, honestly. And then the next slide after that is a continuation of this one, where it's basically just saying, like, talking about these 2 terms that you see used a lot in the slide above, where you have phased assault and simultaneous assaults. And again, this will make more sense with part 2, where it's just like, there's 2 main ways you can do this. We can go full balls to the wall, or we can take our time and do piece by piece. And there's big pros and cons to both of those options, especially when you consider how fast things happen in the battlefield today, it's going to move infinitely faster in 150 years from now with warp speed, phasers, and starships involved. So
Zach says he would have Beta Z special forces, and he was talking about having a telepath in each platoon as well.
Well, though. That would probably be a thing in.
Don't think Beta Z's been found yet at that point.
That's the other
they
thing.
know where Beta Z is, but it's not part of the Federation right now.
I guess Vulcans have met them years ago, but there's no. I mean, Vulcans aren't those that make like friendship easily, so they're just a planet. They're not part of the war by any means, so they're. Yes, there wouldn't be any Betazoid people. Maybe just the occasional like trader that comes out. But yeah, you wouldn't have any Betazoid officers, really.
I haven't written in the Betazoids in terms of their tech level at this point, but as far as being aware of them, if they are a spacefaring thing, like that's the one thing that always blew my mind with this is like in the like at the time of the founding of the Federation, they would know who the Cardassians were and where they were at, because the analogy is, imagine you are the nation of England. That's like saying we've never heard of South Africa before. Like, that's absurd. Like, they would know.
But it's a very long list of everybody, and they're so far away, you're never going to meet them unless you try.
But they would still know who they are.
Yeah.
The
Vulcans give them a faction and lots of people. It doesn't mean it's that interesting. And I mean, if you have 500 races, like, okay, cool. Over here is these 27 races. Like, Cardassians aren't special until they're special.
It would be like when the world was a lot smaller and there was like the Silk Road. You'd hear stories of the Orient, and like there's all these like rumors and stories.
Yeah.
Probably never going to see it, right? So.
Well, for one-off planets, I could see that being a thing, but like for things like the Romulan Empire, like in the Bissigverse, before the NX was ever launched, every admiral in Starfleet would have a very crystal clear understanding the Romulans are over there, they're big and they are dangerous, because that would be like saying I am the nation of Italy and I've never heard of the Soviet Union before. Well, from a scale comparison.
It's tricky because Vulcans hide stuff. You can see the Vulcans Enterprise deliberately not telling until they think the time is right.
You would never again, Star Trek is not Bissigverse, is not real. In a real world version of Star Trek, that would never happen. I would go so far as to say by the time the NX-01 is launched, every single decision Starfleet is making at that point is 100% based on the understanding we are going to eventually be at war with the Romulans.
Jesus.
And
the Klingons,
makes sense.
And the Breen.
Well,
I mean,
there's Klingon history coming too. No spoilers on that, but they're not worried about the Klingons for a different reason. So they are well aware of the Klingon Empire in the Bissigverse.
Any big empire would be.
I mean, you still assume there's only so many empires. You'd still assume it to be a war either way, especially as they're more aggressive than Romulus by a long way.
But spoiler alert. Yeah, the Federation, the United Earth, they very well aware of who the Romulans are and what their scope of their empire is. We have a very nice map coming. I think you guys will like. Very big map. Okay, ready for the messy one? Let's do it.
Okay.
Do the messy one. Do the messy page. Way too much going on one page here.
Before we do that, though, I'll just read the new poll in case nobody's voted on it, but everybody has. So, do you wish Enterprise had a 5th season of the Romulan War? Yes, 5th season. Or nope, good with 4 seasons.
I expected
nobody to vote no.
Yeah, I was like, can I be a cheeky 100% poll and just sort of get it past the radar? No.
When I saw it when you first put it up, I'm thinking that's probably going to be 100% poll.
Nope.
So go vote on the poll. Make sure you're subscribed. Hit the like button.
Tell us if you voted no. Out yourself.
If you voted no, I don't know what to tell you. But no. Super chats have been really light. So if you guys want to super chat and have any questions for David, throw them in.
Yeah,
I know it's a very niche topic. But
we're less than 20% of our minimum. So.
Yeah.
Go.
So the big messy picture.
Yes.
So this is me trying to put some semblance of a eyeball friendly picture together of what a transpheric operation looks like in action. So the it's a lot of moving parts, and there is no way to really sum all of it up into one picture, so we have to speak very generally.
Side question, how many dry docks do we have then? Because I know you have like thousands of ships. I assume you have thousands of dry docks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one dry dock per ship, so when when do they build the dry docks then?
They wouldn't. So like for the dry docks, it's like that's different than where a ship's built, I guess, is what I'm saying. So like
it depends what ship it is.
There's docks, like just strictly speaking in the United States Navy, right? Like we love to go vacation in Norfolk, Virginia. I think I sent you guys pictures last time we were there, right? Like you were literally in the dock in the hotels, right? There's different docks that do different things. You have construction docks, you have refurbishment docks, and you have port, right, where like there is nothing happening. The ship is just sitting there and it's tethered to piers, right? So in Star Trek and Bissigverse, you have that too. You have dry docks that are built for constructing new ships inside of them, some that are built for just doing routine maintenance checkup operations, nothing too extensive. You would probably have emergency repair docks for not building new ships but fixing ones that do get seriously murked up, and then you would have docks that aren't really like docks per se. They're just places where the ships are being stored when they're not being used. Parking spots, essentially.
So when were these thousands of docks built then?
I mean, continuously throughout, because everything you're seeing right now is a snapshot as it exists in 2190. So, like, this has been a...
But the Romulan War had thousands of ships, though. You said it was thousands versus thousands. So they had to build them before Romulan War, and a dock would take at least 2 years to build, a year and a half. I assume they built when they met the Vulcans then? Was it so early back they thought... Because, I mean, if the Romulans, day one says, you're going to fight... The Vulcans said, you're going to fight the Romulans at some point. Mm-hmm. So they presumably said, we're going to build thousands of ships because we want thousands of ships. Yep. So I assume it was like, day one, we're going to invest trillions of dollars because there's still money at that point. Like, the entire Earth financing is going towards building dry docks because how else are you going to buy... I mean, an NX takes 3 years, 2-3 years to build. Right. So you can't speed up that much.
Trek Enterprise, not in the Bissigverse.
But that was their first one, too.
Well, the second one still
took a while.
Still took 2 years.
Yeah, I know, but they were just getting their footing. Like,
but you can't speed up that much. I mean, these are complicated
different classes of ship.
These are fantastic questions, and it's almost like I wrote like 300 pages of content in something else that answers these questions. It's weird.
Yeah, I know you got answers to most of these questions.
That's the problem. I hope that's why he's doing it, because he knows that there's answers written for this already.
Well, yeah.
In Bissigverse lore that's not been released
yet.
Because
people are going to have these sort of thoughts, and if you don't say the stuff, then it seems like
Yeah, no, totally.
So I'm just saying, when was the escalation from we have 30 ships to we have 2,000 ships and 2,000 dry docks or more?
In future historical content, right? Because we're going to be doing a lot of history stuff here later, right? So, you're going to see that like trying to think of how to word this right. So, Star Trek on TV, in terms of canon and lore and world building, does a pretty piss poor job of establishing the bigger picture outside of what's happening to our main characters or our main hero ship or two, right? So like there is on Earth, you have a huge sprawling industry of space travel, spacefaring, space transport inside the solar system, outside the solar system. There's colonies outside of United Earth that are in existence, and they're doing their own thing too. You have a flurry of activity, and it's very much analogous to what was going on in the United States prior to World War II. There are some fascinating, really fascinating articles and YouTube videos you can go read. And for people who don't believe the scale of the Bissigverse and that ramp up for the Romulan War, go look at the real world history of what was being built during World War II with just the United States, and then apply that concept to every nation on Earth, right? Yeah, it's spaceships, not water ships, but still not just everywhere on Earth, everywhere in the solar system, everywhere in all of our colonies, right? So like you had months in the United States in World War II where 100 ships were being launched a month. It's I know it's not the same as building a warp capable starship, but once the country's economy, that's what I'm saying. Like, you have to understand, like, once the country's economy was shifted into wartime mode, industry is industry. And you can, if you have a well-designed, well-funded, well-planned industry, you can do this with it, just like the United States industry was. You can go in and out and do whatever the hell you want with it. And the industry of the United Earth and its colonies at that time in the Bissigverse was designed for such an eventuality, where it's a huge civilian industry sector of spacefaring civilian ships, some warp capable, some sublight, and in the systems, in the colonies, trading with other regional partners. And when wartime happens, it's not like, I guess where I'm going with this, it's not like all of a sudden somebody snapped a finger and haha, we have all the infrastructure to build 1 million ships a week now. Like, no, like a lot of that infrastructure already existed. It was just doing other things, and it started getting converted over to military applications, and the whole weight of the entire species was put into it because like they're like, hey guys, if we don't get this right, we're gonna get like exterminated. So it was pretty important for us to get this right, and really everybody's working on it. And you know,
And don't forget the shipyards of like Teller and Andor and all that.
And that's written in there too. There's sections of the Earth-Romulan War where the Tellarites were building more ships for the United Earth than United Earth was at certain points in the Bissigverse version of the Romulan War. So like you have all those other factors into it, and I think it's just I think Star Trek does a terrible job at conveying a sense of scale with this because like you know. The way Star Trek Enterprise and even some of its books are written right now, it's like there'd be no way you could ever have an Earth-Romulan war because Earth only has like 30 ships and the Romulans have 1,000, and they would have annihilated the species in the first week of the war, and that would have been it. So, and you can't tell me I'm wrong because we have Star Trek maps ad infinitum that show the size of the Romulan Empire. So they have hundreds of planets in there. So it's like they would have just burped
until they have a supernova that destroys all of their infrastructure.
Of course, until one star takes out everything, because that great story writing.
Can't build enough ships, yeah. So I was got to remember these are not Earth ships; they're Federation ships. So Tellar's building the exact same style of ship. So there might only be 70,000 dry docks around Earth, but Vulcan's got 1 million, Tellar's got 800,000. They're all building Starfleet designs. Well, they go. I mean, they're spacefaring for extra 800 years. They're going to have. With wartime especially.
Everybody has industry.
Because like you said, there's dockyards. I mean, for every ship you have at least 3 docks, you'd assume. One for building, one for fixing, one for static. If you.
Well, no, because you not necessarily, right? Because you only use the build it dock once, right? It's not like
it's always
for
in
every
use.
ship you need all
I mean,
three.
it's always.
Right, it's continuously in use, but like you would only have like easy numbers. You say you only have 10 building dockyards, right? And every month they turn out another ship. So every month you get 10 new ships and you just leave them running and you never turn them off.
It's like Armada.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being pumped out. Boom.
Yeah.
Boom.
Give all. Yep. Keep building.
Yes. Yeah. So I don't know how we got down that rabbit hole. Were you just upset with how many ships were on the screen with this slide?
No, it's just the audience doesn't know this. So when you talk about the millions of ships, which is unlike anything you've ever heard of ever and ever. There's a scale that you've got to realize that Earth is literally surrounded by hundreds of thousands of dry docks doing hundreds of thousands of things. Earth is not about peace, it's about killing people. It's important. Warfooting.
Yeah, exactly. So, and in the Bissigverse, we have a different lens to that lifestyle, right? Because like you can't. The way Star Trek pacifism in space operates in the TV shows would never ever work in anything even remotely close to real life. So like that's why like the Bissigverse is a lot more militarized because there's like empires around the Federation with hundreds of planets and millions of soldiers and thousands of ships that would love to just come kill you. So like you can't not be militarized or else you die. So
a bit of a side question. Is there like hundreds of Starfleet ships and 500,000 marine warships then? Because some are useful. But I mean, of the branch we know, they sort of defined by exploration, because all the ships with the Enterprise are of that branch, but you wouldn't need to build those, you'd want to build the warships. So I'm assuming it's going to be like, why build Explorer class? You'd build 5 warships. So I assume there's almost no explorers of any kind.
So when we get to the Starfleet section version of this, there are branches of Starfleet that are exploratory, flying ships like the Enterprise, going out and exploring strange new worlds and doing all that goody stuff. You also have sections of Starfleet that are operating more like the way the U.S. Navy or the English Navy does today. Where they're not going out exploring, they are there to deter piracy, terrorism, and acts of foreign aggression.
I love how you didn't say the Canadian Navy, because like we got a canoe and like a submarine with a screen door. So
but it's a very well painted canoe. It is very well painted.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
It's a beautiful canoe though.
It's got moose antlers on it.
But anyways, to the picture here, with the time we have left, is this is me trying to graphically demonstrate the chart in the second one. So Sam, I don't know if you want to go back and forth between these two, but the chart below is a lot of words and stuff, and it's like may be helpful to, like, if you're following along with this later or listening to this or live right now, like going back and forth between the two, because these two things are like very well connected, because this really gets to the part to talk about how you kind of have like this 3-tiered layer system. This is a microcosm of it, but it's the same concept, right? Where
I just want to take a second here, one quick second. Guys, there's a link in the description below so you can look at all these and you can read them at your leisure. So click that link and follow along, or read it after the fact. So just want to point that out again in case new people are here. So
Yep. So
sorry, continue.
No, it's okay. Yeah. So yeah, this big pie chart with like a piece cut out of it, I guess. Oh, and Sam, we were talking about the slide under it with the 3 colors and the triangle thingy. There's different layers to everything that's happening here, and for our hardcore military nerds, you're probably going to love this. For our non-hardcore military nerds, this probably won't make a whole lot of sense to them, but reach out to me later and I'd be happy to try to help explain it to you in more detail. And just as a caveat, maybe we should have said this at the beginning. If this whole PowerPoint presentation was made for military vets and military technology nerds, this is for them. There will be other Bissigverse products that are not this saturated with military jargon. The layering system is, you got what's happening on the planet, what's happening in orbit, and then what's happening like in the solar system at large, and really far out, what's happening outside of the solar system. And things that are happening outside of the solar system are like the modular support bases for supplies, and like resources and medical facilities are being assembled right way outside of the solar system that you're planning to attack. And that's where like your logistics convoys, your medical convoys, like all that shit stays out there, right? That does not come in until it's told to come in. You have your actual like assault element moving through the system with escorts, and you would have full-fledged combat fleets in front of these main assault transport waves fighting enemy warships, presumably. You have all sorts of things happening with probes and stuff like that. So like in Star Trek, probe to me is synonymous for drone in today's world, essentially, because it's like an unmanned autonomous vehicle that has sensors, weapons, technology, it has stuff on it, and there's no people inside of it, essentially. So drones are hyper prevalent in warfare today. For Christ's sake, just look at how the last 3 major wars have evolved in Syria, in Azerbaijan, and in Ukraine, with the horrendous spike of drone technology use. Like, it has gone through the roof, and it's going to keep going through the roof. And that is not stopping in the Bissigverse or in Star Trek. So at every level of the battlefield, there is probes, drone stuff incorporated and part of what's going on. Big ones, little ones, like big ones like probes that are launched from warships that orbit planets doing sensor sweeps, to like a soldier on the battlefield who has like a little probe launcher on their wrist, and they fire it into a building that they're about to go charge into, and the probe flies around the building and scans what's in it so they can update on their heads-up display, hey, this is what's in there. So all of that is happening, right? We're boosting our friendly comms. We're jamming the enemy's comms. We're scanning the planet we're attacking to find targets, and where it's safe to do so, we have orbital support bombardment vessels that are firing on those targets with a plethora of specialized armaments for that task. So they're not nuking the planet, and they're not like blowing up civilians and stuff like that. Because even if this was in your worst case scenario, we're invading Romulus, right? The Federation is not going to go in there and willy-nilly orbital bombard Romulus into oblivion, because there's plenty of civilian stuff down there. It's not how the Federation fights. So like if it was if the Klingons, the Klingons might not have a stellar marine branch. They're just kind of like, we'll fight your ships and we'll slag your planet to glass, and that's about all I got for you, because we're dumb Klingons and we don't care about the resources on the planet. We'll just nuclearly annihilate you with antimatter warheads. But the Federation doesn't fight like that, and a lot of other space powers don't fight like that for a large plethora of reasons, not the least of which civilian casualties and destroying the resources on the planet, or the planet itself if you want to future colonize it yourself. But we have assault ferries landing. We have people transporting down because there's some holes in the transporter jamming, so some people are able to get in. We have smaller orbital support stations that come in that can be towed into orbit later after the big combat has died down a little bit and they need a closer supply line. You have logistics ferries going back and forth between the planet and the modular support stations in the back. You got Starfleet ships guarding the ships in the back. You got SWAS ships that are in the system scanning planets and coordinating friendly forces. You also have SWAS ships that are outside on the edge of the system scanning for threats that are coming into it. Like in Deep Space Nine, you see something similar referred to numerous times during the war with the Dominion, where there's like these big massive scanned arrays that the Dominion has in Cardassian space, and they're constantly finding the Federation ships and fleets like 100 light years out before they even get anywhere near close to Cardassian territory. We don't have that yet in the Bissigverse, but we do have SWAS ships. So the SWASs are out there trying to say, hey, is there an enemy reinforcement fleet coming? Because if there is, we'll see, even if it's coming at us at warp 7, we'll still see it so far out that we'll have a couple hours to reorient our defenses and prepare for it. And then you'll have all of our military intelligence and sensor operator guys, like all sorts of jamming and counterfeit signals, and spoofing is what it's called in the general speak, where you're sending out like false sensor systems and you're jamming other guys' sensors, and all sorts of crazy electronic warfare games you can play with the enemy. Like all of that would still be happening here, right? So it's like there's so much stuff that has to happen on a battlefield all at one time for this stuff to work right, even if it's like a small like invasion. And then like you get to add like so many silly fun Star Trek things. Like everybody is familiar with the concept of the radio man in the war movies, right? And he always stays next to like the platoon leader or the company commander, and he's constantly ringing the phone on the guy's backpack, and like that guy's just there because he's carrying the radio around, right? Well, a funny Star Trek version of that is, what if you had a mobile transporter pad system that can only do one person at a time, and like that would be like an MOS or a branch in the Starfleet Marine Corps, where it's like, hey, I'm the guy who runs around with the little mobile transporter pad on his back, and I set that thing up, and like we beam people, like wounded guys away, or bring more supplies in or reinforcements in, and then I pack this thing back up and I put it on my back, and then we run to like the next spot. Like things like that would exist in the Starfleet Marine Corps, and then you can start having fun with it too, because like there's all sorts of silly Trek-isms that start existing when you look at it like that. So
you don't have the guy carrying that wearing a red shirt.
Yeah, no, yellow shirts only on the important jobs.
Gotcha.
Only the cannon fodder guys get the red unit designators. So the ones we don't care about, they get red.
Yeah. All right. Are we done with the slide then?
Yeah, I mean we have like another music bit at the end of it, but I know we're having some like technical difficulties with it, so I don't think we should like subject the audience to that again. We'll like rework that and figure out how to get the music to come across clearly, because we have some really great music products that we got for this that I really want people to hear, but I don't want it to like shred their ears.
And I also didn't hear that because I was listening to the output.
Right.
I can try loading in the video as a video versus playing. When Premiere's played videos fine before, so I can try video, which is the only other option we have. So otherwise, I just can't play things.
Well, we got a question from Gorgonzola for you, David. What is your opinion on the Argo? I always thought it was some leftover assault operations equipment from the Dominion War.
Well, the Argo is kind of silly, right? Because it's 24th century technology that's like brought in on a shuttle, and then they drive it around, and it's on wheels. Like that scene, I was kind of laughed at, because I'm like, why didn't they just fly the shuttle right to where the sensor ping was for the technology? Why did they drive around in the dune buggy? Like,
Patrick Stewart wanted to drive.
I know. I'm saying from a realism standpoint, that scene makes no sense, and I can't even defend that. And the Argo, if it existed in the Bissigverse, like that scene, well, in the Bissigverse, that scene never would have happened. But for some reason, let's just say it did. If I was doing the Argo, it would have wheels as a backup, but it would primarily be a anti-gravity powered vessel. So it would just go scoop right over the surface at whatever speed the operator deemed acceptable or safe, and it wouldn't be stuck at ground speeds and bumps and all that other crazy like that. It wouldn't happen. So, but the Argo's cool, I guess. But I'd argue to say that the Bissigverse vehicles I showed you are infinitely better and 100% more advanced than the stuff that the Argo had, and we're 250 years in front of it. So,
yeah, just a dune buggy with a gun on the back.
Yeah, that thing was like 1980s technology with a phaser rifle on the back of it, is what it was. So,
yeah. All right. Does anybody else have any more questions for David? It's going to be a presentation here.
I know this was a very niche topic, and it's very heavily loaded for the military vets and whatever. So most of the people who I think would be really interested in this one are going to be the military vets like myself and people who are interested in that. And this was kind of like just a one-off trial, see how the live thing goes, and we get whatever views we get. It's more of a feeler finder outer for me for how much content can we actually put in 2 hours. And the one thing I will say is 548, and we went through, so that 22 slide number I think might be about the right number, maybe a wee bit less if we have more engagement. But we have a lot of other lives that we want to do. And Sam will probably start like throwing things at me or mute me if I say anything more than that, because I'm not supposed to say anything else yet. But the formats will be, the similar structure to how we lay it out, but the content in it will be not as like niche-y military-y as what this one is. This is just how my brain works, and this is what I like to talk about. So I'm like, hell with it. We'll just do something I like to talk about for the first one and see how it goes. Screw you, audience. Technical jargon, you will like it.
Well, it's been stuck in your head for months and months, so to be like,
yeah,
cathartic.
Yeah.
You've now made space for new stuff in your brain, I'm sure.
Yeah, which we're already working on at very rapid paces. So, I'm really excited to keep doing like Bissigverse lives, and I just like doing it to put the information and the content out there because it's just what I like to make. So, but more super chats would be good, guys. More super chats.
Exactly. And again,
put the lights on.
Yeah. And again, in the description below, there's a link to all this stuff, so you can read it all at your own pace. And next time we have David on, or even if you want to comment on this video after the fact, I'm sure he'll be reading the comments and answering questions.
Yes.
So
and there is
download it. He's put a lot of work and effort into it, and we really appreciate it.
So. And you can search Bissigverse, and you can search for his ship designs, because those things are obviously very, very Trekyard centric. There's all sorts of things. We pride ourselves on the quality of those, and they're as elaborate but not. And you can see time travelers as David gets younger and younger and less experienced in talking.
Yeah, and thinner too. As you go back, my face gets thinner, and it gets bigger as we go forward in the timeline.
Yeah, and just remember, all those other ones are edited, which means Samuel had to edit David.
Yeah. Yep. Imagine what a horrifying nightmare that is, to have to take 3 hours of me babbling away at things and then make it fit in like a 30-minute video. It's not easy, guys.
The last one I just didn't make it fit. It lived its space.
For those of you who watch this, I see we have like 53, 54 people on right now. For those of you who watch this later and we're like, oh darn, I would have super chatted if I was there, they have a link to PayPal. And guess what? PayPals are even better than super chats, because YouTube doesn't get their grubby little communist hands on it. And
sorry, Overlord. Sorry, he doesn't speak for us.
So.
And also, there's a super thanks button down there, which is like a super chat, but it's just for non.
For the commies, yes.
So,
yes.
If you want to put the.
So.
What was I going to say?
I think Sam will spare them the exit music, but I will say.
Well, I can try the video feature, and I have no control once it starts playing.
Try it. This is the test one.
Yeah, it's the only other option I have, so that's.
For everybody to know what you're listening to, the intro bit is kind of like a general Bissigverse themey bitlet, right? Where the music will probably stay the same for a long time, but some of the graphics you see at the front of the lives will change depending on what the content or the topic is. At the end of it, what we're playing is the Federation National Anthem for the Bissigverse. So I think that's technically the first time anybody will hear it in its entirety, because you technically hear the Federation National Anthem in Deep Space Nine at the ball game they do with the Vulcans and the Deep Space Niners, but you only hear it for like 5 seconds, and it's like the very end of it. So like this is what the full length version of it would be in the Bissigverse. I guess we're just putting that caveat out there because Sam says he wants to try it, and who knows, maybe it will work perfectly, and you will hear the song in all of its HD glory.
Premiere should play fine. It's done it before. I don't know why. It was fine on my end.
So we will workshop it, folks. We will workshop it.
Although David has a good comment and a simple one to end on thought-wise. He says, "But Starfleet is not a military organization."
Right. Well, in the Bissigverse,
it is.
Federation citizens like living. Hence, Starfleet is militarized. Because if it wasn't, they'd all be dead. Yes. Very quickly and very violently from a great deal number of other powers around them that want to kill them constantly. It never stops. It's a multiverse. What was the term we came up for? It's in the Atlas book. It was Pax something.
It's like the Terran Empire but without the evilness. Everyone's a military person.
No, we're good people. It's just, the
everyone's
military.
military.
It's not like tyrannical stuff. We just understand the importance of having a military deterrence, and how like geopolitics work in space.
And like we said in a previous video, you got to remember, guys, that as time goes on, everyone's been parents born, lived in military. So everybody's a military family. Everybody's a military vibe. Everybody's known people who have died. Everything about Earth is now military in that huge sphere. So nothing's going to be the same.
Correct.
But I mean, like, well,
not everybody knows.
But
I get what you're saying.
Well, yeah, I mean, if there's thousands of ships, you're going to know several people, every person. I mean, the conscription we've talked about before. But it is a military world, military life for like 90 years, as you say, from NX onwards. Like, this Earth is a battle central place to survive.
Well, they're just like, it's not like a. I'm only gonna fire back on that because I don't think that's true. It's like I've
listened to you for years now. It sounds like that.
If Starfleet, let's make Starfleet absurdly huge for a minute. I think a fair, absurdly huge number is, let's say that there's 10 million officers in Starfleet. Okay, right? Wow, big number. What percent of 10 Earth in the future? Let's just say, we'll make an easy number: 8 billion humans on Earth, plus however many other billions in the solar system, on Mars, the moons, in the colonies, Alpha Centauri, Vega, Terra, you name it. Where there's probably 30 billion humans spread out on all these other planets, plus however many billions of other individuals on other planets. So now, if we take 100 billion people in the Federation and Starfleet is 10 million, which is huge, that is 1/100th of 1% of the total population of the Federation.
Which is why Romulan War, those people getting massacred, you're going to have new people, so you're cycling through people very, very quickly, and then so now you've got, your parents are dead, or your kids are dead, you've got siblings. I mean, once you have that many people, it goes through generations, and now you've got
they'd be more
200 million people, and then they all know somebody, so it does diversify pretty quickly.
It's more like how the United States was after World War II. Everybody knows somebody who served, essentially, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just the thought process of service and the military is just more cognizant in their minds. But I would say if you visited Earth in the Bissigverse, it would not really look radically different from visiting Earth in the
more dry docks.
Yeah, but you wouldn't see those though because they'd be out in space. You wouldn't see that on Earth.
But on your sensors though, because holy shit, a lot more blips.
On your sensors you would see some more expanded infrastructure. But it wouldn't. It's not like it's gonna look too radically different from the way it looks now. It's just the way people think about things might be a little different.
And if you want PTSD,
when you're planning your trip from Earth to Mars with Google Maps, you're gonna have to go weave through those. Yeah. I get.
There's 6 miles of Planitia. You gotta.
Yeah. Maybe. So Sam, if you want to try the music thing, good. I put out my disclaimer on it, so nobody be mad at me if it doesn't work.
Don't be mad at me either. I just played it like fun.
Yeah, it was the streaming software that was messing up. So guys, on that note, thank you, David, for joining us. Thank you, all of you, for watching, and check out his other stuff.
Oh, David, go back and watch the start. You can. It's alive. You can go back and start.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. My face gets thinner at the start of this live. Got bigger at the end. Crazy. Weight gain.
So thank you for watching, and hit like, hit subscribe, do all that stuff. Super chat or super thanks if you can, and we will see you guys next time. So
and
until then,
we're gonna mute, and you're not gonna tap the end stream button, Stuart.
That's right.
Good.
I know.
Good.
I'm well aware.
Good.
Thank you for the reminder, though.
Welcome.
But until next time, he is Lieutenant Bissig.
He wants to call me Lieutenant Bessig everywhere we go, but that's fine. I can be whatever you guys want me to be.
He is Captain Foley.
I am.
David?
Commander Kai.
Oh.
Sorry.
I'm supposed to say he is Commander. We didn't rehearse this, obviously, and he's Commander.
Hawkins.
There we go.
And let's see if this works. Bye, guys. Boy, that was a